Okay, so welcome to our huddle. Today we will be speaking about the challenges involved in building a social enterprise in India. We will do this while studying Rangde's journey. It's really nice to see so many of you here. I'm Amukta, the VP Investments and Research at Rangde, and I will be your host for this huddle. I'm assuming that most of you have just gotten back from work, so thanks a lot for joining in. And I request all of you to kindly keep the video on. It is going to be an interactive session, and we would love to see who's asking the questions or if we are boring you. So just a heads up, this session is going to be recorded. And let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce the speakers, Ram and Smita. Ram is the co-founder and MD. Sorry, just a minute. Not able to change the slides. Yeah, I'll just go ahead anyway. Ram is the co-founder and MD of Rangde. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical production engineering from VRSCC in Vijayawada. Prior to starting Rangde, Ram worked as a technology consultant at MNCs while volunteering with different citizen organizations. It was while volunteering for an event that Ram met his future wife, Smita. Ram was chosen for the Ashoka Fellowship in 2012 in recognition of Rangde's game-changing efforts to lower the cost of credit. Ram also worked as a principal consultant at Vignette Europe in the UK before Rangde. Smita is the co-founder and CEO of Rangde. She holds a bachelor's degree in arts from Christ University in Bangalore and a master's degree in medical and psychiatric social work. She started off her career as a special educator and social worker at the Foundation for Action, Motivation and Empowerment, also known as FAME in Bangalore, and went on to work for various nonprofits and city councils as a volunteer and an administrator. Smita was recently chosen to be a part of the inaugural cohort of Google's Accelerator Program for Women Entrepreneurs. They truly are an out-and-out power couple. We also have Vinance, a super talented senior consultant for growth and marketing from our team here. Thanks a lot for being here, Vinance. To all our participants today, if you wish to ask any questions during the huddle, during the presentation, please use the chat box and I will read the questions out after the presentation ends. Please also note that we do have a dedicated slot at the end of the session for the questions. All right, now over to you, Ram and Smita.
Hey, thank you so much, Amukta, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this huddle. So the way we have structured today's talk is between Ram and me, we'll walk you through Rangde's journey so far and some of the ups and downs. And I think we hope to wrap up in about 25 to 30 minutes, plus minus 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have ample time for your questions. So we'd like to make it as interactive as possible. So just have a few slides to make sure that there's a visual and you're able to relate to what we are doing. So on that note, over to you, Ram. We can get started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Smita, and thank you so much, Amukta, for that warm introduction. I just thought I'll start from where Amukta left, and that was when both Smita and I, we got married, and soon after getting married, we moved to the UK, and we started living in this really tiny village called Kidlington, 4 miles away from Oxford. After a few months of living there, we began to realize for the first time what people back home meant when they said India is a developing country. Because for the first time, we were experiencing a developed state of a country. And we couldn't help wonder how much time would it take for India to get there. So, and also what worried us was the simple idea or a simple question we asked ourselves, that what would it take for a village of a similar size, like Kidlington back in India, to get to that state? And we struggled with the answer, which it said would take a few years, a decade, perhaps a lifetime, or perhaps more than that. And that is when we made a promise to ourselves. We said, well, let's give ourselves 2 years, and then move back, and then we decided that we'll do something about it. And what we did was to set a goal for ourselves. We said 2006 it is, and we'll take a plunge into the social space. And we made this promise, and we pretty much forgot about it, but things magically started happening. I ended up getting a dream job offer with a company called Vignette. There's a leader in enterprise content management. Smita was volunteering for Oxfam. She ended up getting a job offer from the local county council, the Oxfordshire County Council. And thanks to my job, both Smita and I, we used to travel extensively in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And the more we traveled, the more we felt the need to get back to India and do something. But then we said, well, let's stick to our promise of 2006. And when 2006 came, we looked at several ideas by then. One idea, which was very close to our hearts, was how do we address the multi-dimensional problem of child labor? How do we not just address it, but holistically see if we could solve that problem? The idea was simple. The idea was to create a platform which will certify organizations, institutions that they're child-friendly. And if you do find children who are working, we ensure that they have they get back to school, but also support their families. The second idea we looked at was, how do we bridge the massive empathy gap which we have in our country? Because most of the time, we tend to know everything about every problem which India faces. And the problem with that is that we have a very limited view of the problem and a very simplistic view. So the idea was to create a media platform which would bring Indians living in India and outside India closer to the problem which India is facing, and see if they would want to do something about it. And then finally, we stumbled across microcredit, thanks to Mohammed Yunus and the Grameen Bank jointly winning the Nobel Peace Prize. So our initial response was, well, Bangladesh is a poor country. They need microcredit. India is far ahead of Bangladesh, and we don't. But when we Googled it a bit, we noticed that India was actually behind Bangladesh when it came to access to credit. Back then, only 7.7% of India's eligible population had access to credit. And we Googled it further, we noticed that in India, we stumbled across an article on rediff.com which spoke about how borrowers who had borrowed from a microfinance institution in 2004, how some of them had committed suicide because of the high interest rates they were being charged. And on one end, we were reading this, and on the other hand, we also read this beautiful book written by Mohammed Yunus called Creating a World Without Poverty. And in this book, he spoke about eloquently of how one should really design a credit program and how one should take care to ensure the communities who are accessing it are not overburdened. And we felt that in India, the way credit was being, especially microcredit was being designed and delivered, was a classic case of a product designed exclusively for the poor, but so expensive that the rich cannot afford it because the interest rates they were charging hovered in the range of 45% plus. And that is when we felt that perhaps we should do something about this. And just around the same time, peer-to-peer platforms were making headline news. Zopa was the first in the world. Kiva was later, soon after that. And we noticed that that we felt that this perhaps could be a great model, especially for a country like India, where a peer-to-peer platform would not only create a sustainable alternative to traditional sources of credit, but it would also help bridge the empathy gap which we have in the country. Because unlike charity or other forms of engagement, here you're actually investing, you're lending money to somebody who could be hundreds of miles away from you. And this person would work hard and repay the capital. So at some point, you will notice that this person is actually repaying the capital to you. And at that point, you may want to talk to this person or perhaps visit this person, and things might just change. So we're very excited. We felt that this is perhaps we should zero down. And then with our own, the next question was, what about the funding, right? How do we fund this? So we said, well, we'll put 6,000 pounds take 6,000 pounds from our savings and see if we could build a small prototype and showcase it to other funders and then raise more money. So that's how it all began. And after several attempts to find partners, design partners and technology partners to build the first version of Rangde, just when we were about to give up, we got connected to a bunch of techies who had spent 15 years with Infosys. And they were setting up a boutique consulting firm. And coincidentally, they were also part of the core team which built Finacle, Infosys award-winning core banking solution. When they initially heard us out, they felt that we were multimillionaires, NRIs based in Oxford. But very soon they realized that we're in fact, indeed, very poor NRIs based in Oxford. And they at one stage, they said they will be happy to fund us. We said, no, we will pay you. And they finally agreed to build this at a very low cost. And that's how we started. And we finally went live on 26th of January. And I'll request Smita to talk about what happened after that.
Thanks, Ram. So essentially what we do is leverage the peer-to-peer lending model to lower the cost of borrowing for the end recipient, and really, like Ram said, bridge the empathy gap between, urban and rural India. And how does it work? So basically on the platform, you can see individuals from across the country who need access to credit for livelihoods. And you as an individual can actually go online, choose a specific individual or invest in a specific fund. And as and when the money gets repaid, you can either reinvest this or you can withdraw it. That's absolutely up to your choice. How do we actually reach out to communities who need access to credit? And that's really, in some sense, an area where we have built a lot of expertise in. We work with a network of impact partner organizations on the ground. Think of them as livelihood specialists for rural India. They have, the expertise of working with communities. They enjoy the social capital with them and have been helping communities to kickstart livelihood activities. But then, for any livelihood activity, as you can imagine, credit is the most important aspect, and that is the missing link which Rangde really fulfills. And you, individuals, as social investors, really help in bridging that gap. The journey so far, like Ram said, started way back in 2008. In fact, we're just on the cusp of turning 15 now. Funded by ICICI Foundation and Tata Trust initially. We have had a very interesting journey. Initially as a non-profit when peer-to-peer lending was unregulated in India. In fact, we were the first ones to start this in the country. In 2017, RBI came up with regulations for peer-to-peer lending, which meant that we had to really transition into a for-profit entity. And so we had to pull down the shutters. We had a gap year of about 1.5 years while we were waiting for RBI's license, and relaunched Rangde in September 2019. So overall, if you look at our journey of 15 years, we've disbursed a little over 120 crores now. And all of this money has actually been raised from individuals like you and me. And this is entirely individuals led and with absolutely no funding from institutions when it comes to the loans. And our interest rates, which is really something that we are paranoid about. In fact, it's in our DNA now and is completely regulated, and our investees do not pay anything more than 8% per annum on the loans that they take from Rangde. Much lower than 8% in some cases, but definitely not more than 8%. And what is the impact we're trying to create? So a lot of people, I think even at this point, about 86% of India's eligible population does not have access to credit. So our focus is to reach out to people, first time borrowers who have never had access to credit from banks. and the banks deny credit to them because there's very little data about them. So there's no way the bank can really serve them, and that's the kind of communities that we reach out to. Over 90% of our investees are women, and we just love working with women. And we've seen such great stories of us being able to unleash entrepreneurial activities in rural India thanks to Rangde loans. And we're also seeing a lot of them now becoming entrepreneurs and job creators in the communities that they are in. How do we measure impact? There are two critical impact metrics that we look at: how many days of employment or livelihood we've been able to generate for our communities, and how many people we are now in some sense, first time borrowers who now have a credit score thanks to them borrowing from Rangde. In fact, yesterday I was talking to a couple of our partner organizations in the Northeast, and it was so heartening to hear from them that thanks to the Rangde loan, they were now able to get a loan from the Nagaland Rural Bank. They were able to show Rangde's, the individual's track record with Rangde and the credit score that is getting built. And the bank there has now agreed to lend them 5 lakh rupees. So for the first time, I felt in 15 years, we are now beginning to move the needle. And that's the kind of systemic change that we want to bring through Rangde. Very interesting story. I'm not sure if you guys have already seen this on LinkedIn. Pragya Devi, who is a trailblazer, an auto rickshaw driver, e-rickshaw driver in Mirzapur, who is really making the news, at least in the Rangde ecosystem. And we funded her e-rickshaw. I can't say we, our social investors actually funded her, 28 individuals who backed her dream. And now she is actually inspiring many more women in the community, helping them learn how to drive, and also referring them to Rangde so that they can get a loan to get started on their journey to financial independence. Just some, I think a typical day at Rangde, you see many such stories. When we talk about impact, we always talk about the impact on the investees side, right? But in Rangde's case, what we have also experienced is the kind of impact it has on a social investor. So the person who lends money through the platform, we call them a social investor because they're really investing in people to create tangible social impact. And we have seen some amazing stories where investors who've actually lent money through the platform have found this to be an eye-opening experience. For many of them, it's been a life-changing experience. They've quit their corporate jobs, gone on to either join some of our field partners and work with them, or they've started their own social enterprise. They've volunteered for Rangde. Some of them have joined Rangde as full-time team members. So our CFO was a social investor with Rangde, and now he's joined us as a full-time team member. There are many such stories at Rangde where people have joined us as full-time team members. So I always look at the kind of impact we've been able to create for social investors as well. And it's amazing to see many first-time philanthropists, first-time investors who are actually playing a role as social investor on Rangde. The big transition. So this was a time when both Ram and I actually felt that we were at the crossroads. 2017, RBI came up with regulations. We had actively participated in sharing our thoughts. There were several roundtables that were done, public consultations before the regulations came. But when the regulations came, we still felt lost. We felt, what's going to happen to this organization we were trying to build. More than that, what would happen to the social purpose and mission with which we had started Rangde? And how would it actually help us solve the problem that we were trying to solve? There were basically two questions that we were trying to address. One is, how do we find mission aligned investors? And why is this important? Because we had seen many stories, of microfinance institutions, of well-meaning social enterprises that started with the objective of solving a problem. But then, because of the kind of capital or kind of investors who actually invested in the entity, the social purpose got eroded over a period of time, to such an extent that founders started to have existential questions of, why did I actually start this enterprise in the first place? And Ram and I, both of us, were very clear that we did not want to tread down that path. The second thing is, how do you ensure that the business model is created in a way that it always protects our social mission? Both, as you can imagine, were very complicated problems, and this is why we were even contemplating if we should go ahead and transition into a for-profit entity. Fortunately for us, I think persistence and our focus on the purpose on why we started Rangde really paid off. And thanks to some great mentors we have had. In fact, I should name him Professor P. Sudarshan, who was really the first person to even know about Rangde. He told us not to give up. He said that don't give up without trying. And thanks to some wonderful mentors we have had, we actually took the leap and said, okay, let's look at what can be done. And we did find a silver lining. In terms of the funding, we were very fortunate. Many of our social investors who had lent through the platform over the years volunteered to become our equity investors. We had actually sent them a communication on email saying that this is what RBI has come up with, so we don't know what the future has in store for Rangde. But whatever it is, you will be the first to know and we'll keep you posted. And we were overwhelmed with the kind of responses we got. So within about 20 days, 23 individuals offered to become our equity investors, and we were able to raise 2 crores from them, which was needed to even file for the license with RBI. And that was unthinkable. So we said, and that also gave us the confidence. We said that, okay, there are people to back us. And the funny bit is we asked them, please let us know what your terms would be. They said, you define the terms because we want you guys to continue building Rangde and we want to be a part of your journey. And it was amazing to see that kind of faith and confidence and trust in what we were building. And the second thing was, how do you create a business model? Because as you can imagine, right, as a lender, the only way lending institutions actually make money is from the spread, the interest cut that you get from the loans that you're lending. If we were to apply that to Rangde, what would happen? Either we would continue to do more loans or we would increase the interest rates, both of which are really not in the best interest of the community, because we didn't want our communities to get overburdened with a lot of loans from us. We also didn't want them to pay high interest rates because that's going to make them indebted anyway. So we said, can we think of a different model? And some amount of brainstorming led to us discovering this model, which is tried and tested in the software world. The software as a service model, which we then now applied to Rangde to become as a platform as a service model. And we said, fine, let's look at how the numbers look, and it looked fantastic. We said, okay, so for now, let's get started because looks like there is a way out, and then we can actually figure out if we can actually continue to serve the communities the way we have been serving with really low cost loans. So 15 years since we started, where have we reached? We have been a purpose-led organization throughout, initially as a non-profit, now as a for-profit, but purpose comes before profit. And what we now have is, I'm happy to share, in the last 3 years, we have been able to prove to ourselves and to our investors that the platform as a service business model works. In fact, during the pandemic, a majority of our loans were actually interest-free loans. Despite that, we were still able to hit our revenue numbers because of this beautiful model. We have a fantastic team completely aligned with our mission and highly talented that is helping us, reach our milestones and really help us fulfill our mission. A community of aligned equity investors, and I think we are so fortunate to have this community of people. The initial 23 that I spoke to you about is now 133. We have 133 equity investors on our cap table, which is kind of unthinkable for a conventional investor. But then to see the kind of alignment they have, I actually look forward to our AGMs, because our AGMs are really about how can we help Rangde do better and reach the hinterlands of India, and not really about why we doing this and questions about profitability. But we are also on the path to financial sustainability thanks to the business model. And like I said, after 15 years, thanks to great impact stories that we are hearing from the field, I think we are now beginning to move the needle a bit. This is a team, just a few of them. We are a 40-member team now. I couldn't fit all of them into the screen. So these are some of the amazing people who are working as part of the Rangde team. And it's because of them that we actually are able to do what we do. Also, I think it'll be appropriate to share a few learnings. These are things that we have discovered and experienced over the last 15 years. And I think in some way, some of these traits and belief systems have actually helped us come this far. One is clarity on our purpose. And I think, whenever there have been challenges, whenever we have been at the crossroads, this is one thing that has really helped us. Why are we doing what we are doing? Who are we serving? I think these questions really help us answer not just the day-to-day challenges, but even big roadblocks that we have seen in the last few years. The second thing, ideas don't get funded, right? Because when we actually came up with the idea of Rangde, the first thing I did was went to my boss, who was part of the big lottery fund in the UK that gives away hundreds and thousands of dollars to international projects. And I went with this idea on paper, and he said he also, because he liked what we were doing, he took it to the board, and they said, sorry, what are we talking here? And that was the first time we realized that an idea on paper is not going to get funded. And that's when we decided that we are going to put in our own savings to get this prototype off the ground and see how far we'll go. The second thing is be willing to fail, because especially in the social space, I think it applies everywhere. I think we were ready to fail and go back to our corporate lives. We felt that 6 months we're going to try the idea of Rangde. If it's not going to work, let's go back. But at least we'll have the satisfaction of having tried. Even till today, we believe this, because unless you try and fail, you're never going to learn your lessons. And I do believe that allowing and enabling your team members to fail is as important, because it creates a culture of innovation and growth. Build a great team. I think always have people who are smarter than you, learn from them, and give them that environment to perform. The last thing, persist for your purpose. Never give up, no matter what. Stay true to your purpose, and at any cost, don't give up on it, and you'll see miracles happen. And I'm a firm believer that the universe conspires in different ways to make things happen, as long as you are sincere and you are, really persistent of chasing your purpose. That's it. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So thanks a lot, Smita and Ram. We're now open to taking questions. You can either post the questions on the chat box, or you could raise your hand, not like this, of course, but you could also DM me or Vinance directly, and we could ask those questions on your behalf. Yeah, Asima, you can go ahead.
Hi Smita, hi Ram, hi Team Rangde. So I am currently actually working with Samunnati, and we are an NBFC working in the agri space. So I was just thinking, like, I really liked your model and what you're trying to do, and especially with the interest rates being as low as 8%, because I am aware that in the rural segment, having such interest rates is like very difficult to offer also at these interest rates. So my question was, like, how do you decide, like, do you yourselves do any sort of credit underwriting for the organizations or individuals, or who does that, like due diligence and credit underwriting part? So,
Ram, you want to answer that?
Yeah. So we do it at two levels, Asima. One is at the partner level. By the way, Anil is a former colleague and a very dear friend. So
okay.
we were colleagues at I from our trust. I was part of the founding team of I from Trust. So the so we do it at the partner level. Now that we take it very seriously. So the checks which we do, so we have scorecard, right? So scorecard for partner and a scorecard for the borrower, and the different scorecards depending on the, because we're sector agnostic, right? So the different scorecards for different sectors. But the scorecard which really is critical is the partner scorecard, right? The impact partner whom we're working. So we look for their leadership, their track record, their ethical fiber, and more importantly, why they're doing what they're doing. Right, so it's very important for us to really ensure that Rangde's credit beautifully complements their own efforts to create or sustain livelihoods for their communities. So as a matter of principle, we don't allow them to charge anything extra to the community members for providing the service. We also ensure they're not charging or in other words, are they truly creating value for the communities, right? So that's the litmus test. And that's pretty much does it. In fact, we charge them. So there's another litmus test is that we actually charge them a platform fee to provide this service. If somebody is still standing, then they say, oh, you're charging us? Sorry, we're not going to work with you. So these are a few things which we do. And that has really put us in good company of people who really, really mean good for the communities.
Okay, okay. And at the individual level, you also have some kind of check.
Standard stuff. Yeah, the standard thing. Yeah, standard checks. We do the credit bureau check. And if somebody who's never borrowed before, we actually celebrate, saying that, oh, well, thank you for the opportunity.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
It's a privilege and honor to actually serve them.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. I think it was really interesting because I have been hearing about Rang De, but never really truly understood what it is. So now I think after today, I would definitely like to try it out as a from the investor perspective. So
And
yeah.
also, Asima, just to add, why we are able to offer this low cost is largely because any NBFC, right, or has a cost of capital. Even a bank has a cost of capital because NBFCs borrow from banks, and so what we're really doing is we're disintermediating a bank, right? Because where does a bank get its money from? It gets it from people, right? So we're saying that can we connect people to people, and that's
Right.
peer to peer.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Asima. We will be posting the link to our website shortly on the chat box. So feel free to explore our website and get back to us if you have any questions. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Yeah, Preeti, you can go.
Yeah, good evening, Team Rangde. So I have two questions. So one is, as Asima said, she would like to explore this opportunity as an investor. So what is the minimum criteria you have for the investor as such? Because on your slide, as you mentioned, it is quite inspiring, reading that most of the investors you have a kind of who are either aspiring philanthropist or the philanthropist. So that was one question. And the second question I want to ask is, when it comes about the lending, so is that only for the enterprise, those who are into non-profit, or also into the profit?
Sure, Preeti. So to answer your first question, it just takes 100 rupees to start making a social investment.
Oh,
And
lovely.
yeah, it's because we want to keep it as simple and as accessible to everybody. So anybody who's above the age of 18, mainly because we're a regulated entity, that's important. So you just need to do your, yeah, it's as simple as that. And the second thing about who we fund, we mostly fund individuals who are running a livelihood activity. So typically they tend to be farmers, micro entrepreneurs, artisans. So the money goes directly to the borrowers, all investees. So the partners that we work with are only organizations that are enabling this partnership between our social investor and the investee. So yeah, the money flows directly from the lender's account to the borrower's account via two escrow accounts that we maintain, which are regulated and monitored by RBI. So that's how the money flow works.
Okay. So maybe I'll connect to you later after this, because we are also working on one of the project as extension to our current startup. So would like to discuss more opportunities about it.
Absolutely. Feel
Thank
free.
you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Preeti. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi, Akanksha here. Hi. One question. She mentioned platform as a service, right? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So as a peer-to-peer lending platform, we are not
Right.
really, allowed to lend from our books, unlike other NBFCs. So, as per RBI's regulations, we only connect lenders to borrowers via the platform. But in our
Right.
case, who accesses the platform? It is the impact partner organizations. Our borrowers do not have direct access to our technology platform, but the people or organizations that access our platform are the impact partner organizations. So they actually pay us a fee so that their communities can get access to affordable credit. So to give you an example, if you're working with Pradhan works with FPOs across different states, and after they have done whatever they their work of creating FPOs and doing their capacity building, when FPOs need access to credit, that is where they do not get access to credit. Not all of them, at least at the kind of terms that we offer. That is when Pradhan actually connects this FPO to Rangde for us to actually facilitate loans for them. So the fee is actually paid by organizations like Pradhan, who are then able to refer their community members to us for them to get access to credit.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Akanksha.
Uh,
Yeah,
Hi, I have a
Malvika, go
question.
ahead.
So apart from providing access to credit, does Rangde also work with entrepreneurs to help them figure out how they can scale the operation?
We do not do that directly, Malvika, but we choose partners who do that, because we do not work with organizations that do credit just for the sake of credit. One of the criteria for selecting a partner as part of our due diligence is to ensure that the critical to success interventions are actually provided either to the farmer or to the entrepreneur, and that is how we are able to ensure that the funds are being put to productive use, and it's also creating the intended impact. So all our partner organizations, in addition to so providing credit is just one of the important things for them to facilitate that livelihood activity.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of our participants has a question. When you started, was having a defined business model a conscious choice, or did it evolve over time? Also, what are your thoughts on, is having a well-defined business model for social impact enterprises a necessity?
So should I answer that, Smita? Yeah, so absolutely not. I think far from being a business model, we never had a business plan as well. So I think what kept us going was the commitment to the larger purpose, the mission with which we started on the and yes, absolutely, the business model. In fact, we wanted to hang up our boots and move on, to to something else when the regulations came out. But thanks to a mentor, as Smita mentioned, Professor P. Sudarshan, he said, well, you spent 9 years doing this. Why don't you spend 3 months thinking about a new business model without compromising on your principles, without compromising on your mission? And that really helped, because we felt that, yeah, I mean, it's 3 months, and we went back to the drawing board, did marathon design thinking sessions. And that is when we discovered this new business model, and which was fantastic. And in fact, whatever we do, at Rangde today is largely driven by the purpose which we started Rangde. And when we keep that in sight, I think many of these challenges which we keep encountering every now and then, they just fade away.
Yeah, and just to add to what Ram said, I think staying focused on solving that problem, right, and really tuning yourself, listening to what your communities are saying. If you focus on that over a period of time, you'll also see a business model emerge. But if you go with the intent of creating a business model, you'll not be able to solve either. So that's been our experience.
All right. So thanks a lot, Ram and Smita. So Pragya, you had raised your hand. Would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Two questions. As an investor, can I see where the funds are going? Am I able to connect with
Yes,
the
yes,
people
a big
who
yes, a big yes, Pragya.
I mean, is it like a broad umbrella where the money goes, or am I also like the peer-to-peer thing? Does it mean that I'm able to speak with the person who?
Yes, of course, yes to everything. So you can actually choose
Awesome.
that one individual that you want to invest in.
Got it.
You get to stay connected in the sense you get to see, the progress this person is making. You get to see the repayments that are coming back. We also facilitate field visits, interactions. uh, you know, we just believe in radical transparency, and it starts with, being able to decide where your money goes.
Awesome. Okay. Another a bit amateur question. As a social entrepreneur, how do you, so business model, yes, definitely. But how do you decide what salary do you give to yourself?
Okay, sorry, I think I'll take a shot and then both of us can answer this. I think what we
Sure.
did, well, not a thing, but we actually did this right from day one, was to pay ourselves the bare minimum to sustain ourselves.
Okay.
And this was a discipline which was set in by a mentor again, Professor P. Sudarshan. By the way, he's is somebody who's an extraordinary person. His mentor was Vikram Sarabhai.
Wow.
You can imagine how old he is and
Yeah.
how wise he is. And we're privileged and honored to have him as a mentor. So, you know, in the first check which we got from ICICI Foundation in 2008, when there
Yes.
was a global meltdown, was a funding of close to 3.6 crores, right? So that was a
Yeah.
big amount. But what we did was we were super frugal because
Mhm.
of the guidance which we received, and we ensured that we always put the organization in front of ourselves. And
Yeah.
that discipline came in handy when we were transitioning as well.
Got it.
So yeah, I think that's the principle we follow, but that applies to only some of us,
Yeah.
not the entire team. We also have a lot of Gen Z millennials who joined us. So, we can't expect them to be missionary like us. But yes, they are clearly, we come very close to what they would otherwise get. But yeah, it's kind of a fine balance, and so we've been very fortunate, very grateful to be able to draw this balance.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Pragya. Soumya, you can go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, I think I had two questions to ask, and yeah, I think one was to also understand, how did the shift from being a not-for-profit to a for-profit social enterprise impact in terms of your organizational operational costs or even your cash flow as an organization, right? I think that's one thing I'm trying to understand, and also how. If you could talk to us about a little bit about your journey of building your first community of social investors and your journey in terms of scaling that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk about the building the community of social investors first because I just love doing that. And so it happened very organically, to be very honest, Samya, especially when we were starting up in 2008. And there was not a whole lot of online communities then. So it was painfully built and it was purely offline. And it just happened that Ram and I used to be in every single tech event, every startup event that was there, really talking about the model and what we were trying to build. And it so happened that there was like an instant resonance, with the model amongst people of our own age group. So we would often hear people telling us that, oh wow, I always wanted to start something like Rangde. Now that you guys have started, how can I be a part of it? So this offline community, they were our first social investors, they were our think tank, they were our extended team, they were basically everything. And soon what happened is because of this community we stopped traveling, and these people were actually, representing Rangdev. So to such an extent that when a chapter member would go speak at an event, people would ask that person, oh, are you the founder of Rangdev? So that connect was so strong, and so we built this network painfully but through offline. But then many of them have been with us as social investors till date. Some of them have also become equity investors. Now of course we focus a lot on, building online communities because a lot of things have changed, but the core to engagement is transparency and empathy. I think these are two very important things. When you talk to them, if you talk like an individual talking to them and not like an organization talking to them, that makes a big difference. So what we have done with our social investors, they are the first to know about anything and everything that happens at Rangde, the good, bad, and the ugly. We also share failure stories with them, things that did not work out, money is not coming back. We do get a lot of brickbats, but then in the end they love us because we're being open and transparent and telling them that this is what it is, we have failed, this is what has happened. And that is what actually has, kept so many people together. And the second question about the changes, see, as part of our purpose, nothing has changed, but the way we look at things has definitely changed. So, and it's not necessarily because we transitioned from a non-profit to a for-profit, because we felt that, we had always thought that at around 10-12 years of Rangde, we would have become a sustainable organization. And during that time, this, transition had to happen. We want to make sure that Rangde is a financially sustainable organization so that we are able to call the shots, we are able to run things the way we want to. Fortunately for us, we have a super aligned equity investor community, but then we can't always say that, how do we grow Rangde unless we are financially sustainable. So focus on metrics, focus on performance, focus on getting the right people for the right job. All of this has actually happened in the last 3 years.
Yeah, if you can just give an anecdote, Rangde started in 2008. Just to give you a context, Sachin Bansal was just starting Flipkart, and Smita and Sachin Bansal used to, brainstorm, say that, okay, how can we help promote Rangde? So they came up with this wonderful idea of saying that, can we put a Rangde bookmark in every book they're shipping? So we have this very chain of emails from Sachin Bansal back then saying that, hey, when are you sending the next batch of bookmarks? We're running short of them. And then Girish Mathrubootham, again, fresh desk. He was he was working with Zoho back then. Yeah, so many very interesting, conversations and partnerships. And yeah, Kunal Shah was a good friend. Again, he was busy with free charge, and so we've had our own share of excitement, and we still keep in touch with them.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. So we're running short of time, so we'll take a couple more questions. Kruti, I'll just get back to you in a bit. I'll read out a couple of questions in our chat box. So Avanti wants to know if there are any tax benefits with investing, and also what happens when someone cannot pay back. Asima has also added to the question. She wants to know if the collection part is taken care of, which party, sorry. So
yeah, I think I'll answer the question. So yeah, actually there are no benefits as such, because this is actually a investment. It's actually a debt instrument, right? Regulated by RBI. In fact, you get taxed if your interest income goes beyond a certain limit. Please remember, because it's a proper debt instrument, right? So it's like a money market mutual fund, except that this is regulated by RBI. The collections part, right? So, so we help our partners set up those repayment mechanisms, because we work in, we work with communities across 22 states. So, and they have their own inherent challenges, be it connectivity, literacy level, the whole mechanism. So we customize the repayment mechanism. And by regulation, we are not expected to take cash. So the money it's entirely digital both ways. The money flows directly to the bank account and then comes back via the escrow account as well. So that's how it works. And also very happy to share that we also won a competition which allows us to work with the India Post Payments Bank. So every post office, we have access to it thanks to this competition. And therefore, we direct our communities, in case they find that easier, they can just walk into a post office and make the Rangde repayment.
Yeah, thanks, Ram. Kruti, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say my question was kind of answered when Smita was talking, but if I can ask another one, I was really, I was just curious how you found mentors. Was it kind of an organic thing, or did you specifically seek out certain mentors? And how do you kind of, when you're really in the early stages of developing the idea and what this could look like, how do you look for the right guidance?
Oh, that's a great question, Kruti. And I think getting the right mentors is so important because we have had so many mentors, but not all mentors have been right for us. And we've realized this only much later on that, oh my God, why didn't we? Yeah, so it so happens, and this has been our experience in the early days. We used to have a lot of people who used to offer themselves as mentors for us. But I think you need to know where you are as an organization and where you are in your journey and what kind of mentors you actually need for yourself. I think that is very important. So evaluate the mentors and don't just you know yeah, just because somebody offers to be a mentor, please do not get them as a mentor. For us, we have been fortunate because one, of course, Professor P. Sudarshan, we have known him ever since, even before we started Rangde. And even till today, we know that he's like, in the Master Shifu in Kung Fu Panda. He's like that, so he will actually always put you on the right path, and he will not hesitate to tell you that what you're doing will just not work. But at various stages in, where you are in your evolution as an organization and as an entrepreneur, you will need different kinds of mentors. So just make sure you evaluate and get the right kind of mentors, because I know that not having the right people can actually set you back rather than take you forward, because you're blindly trusting your mentor, but that may not always be the right thing.
Yeah, and also I think I would say that, just to add to that, it's okay for you to take a while to find the right mentor, but it's very important that you seek the right mentor, right? Only if you seek the right mentor, you'll find one. So how I'll tell you this backstory, that how we found Professor Sudarshan. So I used to attend these startup events. This was 2000, where if you remember, there was like the .com boom in India, right? So there were startups, on the internet. Everybody was talking about it. So there was this series, seminar series, which used to happen in Indian Institute of Information Technology in Bangalore. It had just started, and all the entrepreneurs, every week there used to be a new entrepreneur coming there and talking about their business model and all of that. Towards the end of it, there was this one hand used to raise in the end, and that was Professor P. Sudarshan, who used to literally, trisect the entire business model and say in as many words what it truly was. So I was super impressed, and I used to just follow him wherever he used to go after that session, and he used to ignore me initially, and then he said, "Okay, so what is that you want to do?" And that's how we kept in touch, and we exchanged notes. And but yeah, I think you should really look for, and then the other thing which you could really, once you find the right mentor, you will know, right, that he's the right mentor, right? And then if you need help, because sometimes the mentors may not be able to help you in multiple departments, right? So you can ask them to refer other mentors, right? Imagine their network, right? So they can connect you with other mentors who can help you with different functions where you may need help.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of trying to get a board of advisors rather than one mentor that guides you. No, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kruti. One more question. So Avanti also wanted to know what would happen if someone couldn't pay back. Do you help?
Yeah, so basically, quickly, I think on that, there are two ways, scenarios where it may happen, right? Willful and non-willful. So we've had 0 willful defaults so far. So that's testimony in itself to the community. But non-willful, again, they could be for various reasons, right? Natural calamity or an outlier event, or a process failure, right? So we take corrective action. And so if you look at our NPA, we publish our NPA live. We are the only RBI regulated platform which actually publishes it live on our homepage. It's 5%, around 5%, but actually, if you look at it will come. There are communities who are badly affected. There were key attritions and all of that, so they had to rebuild the entire team. So if you look at the effective default, we're at about 2.4%, right? So that's where we are. So yeah, that speaks in itself. This is despite 2 pandemic waves, right? So we were very worried when that happened, but yeah, we're at about 2.4%.
Yeah. Are there any more questions? All right. Yeah, looks like we're done. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. We hope you had a good time and learned something new and of value today. If you wish to understand the philosophy and ethos behind Rangde and its mission, do read these books. Even otherwise, they are really good reads. And if what Ram and Smita spoke about, Rangde, resonated with you and you'd like to know more about us, please head over to our website. I'll drop a link to it in our chat box. And if you would like to register as a social investor, please use the code LEAP 2023 while registering. Venance, if you could just go on to the last slide, they'll be able to see the code as well. This will help us understand where the registrations are coming from and will help us greatly in planning our initiatives. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you, Kruti.
Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, I joined in late. Is the recording available of this session by any chance?
Yes, yes. So we'll be sharing the recording with the Leapclub team as well, where you'll be able to access it from.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely
Thank
evening.
you so much. What a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Ram, Smita, Amukta, Vance. It's great to have had you here, have hosted you. Thank you for doing this.
Ashna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Soumya.
I'll stop recording now.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Vance.
Yes.